Good afternoon, or I guess whatever time it is at your place right now. I just came back from watching Avengers Endgame for the second time in cinemas. That is impressive, for me at least. I don't think I've ever watched a movie twice in cinemas, and I must say I do not regret it. I cried at the same moments, I laughed at the same moments. It's just all round a fantastic movie. And if you haven't watched it yet and you have any interest in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I suggest you go watch it. I went with a friend and she has only watched Ant-Man and Iron Man and Infinity War, I think, and she loved it. And she's a German. They are very dry and critical and stuff, stereotypes. Woo! But she really liked it. So um, yeah, I am not going to write a review of this because I know jack shit of movies. And I can tell you what I thought of it, and I already did. It's a brilliant movie. Instead of what I'm going to do is, because in the last video I mentioned I had nitpicks and like at least one plot hole, and I think it's suitable to elaborate on that. So heads up, this will have spoilers, unlike the last one. And don't misunderstand me. It is I don't know yet where it ranks exactly, but it's definitely in the top four Marvel movies I've ever seen. So these nitpicks did not diminish my enjoyment of this movie, and I promise it won't diminish yours. Although now that I'm thinking about it, if you're watching this movie with the spoiler warning and all, you probably already saw it. So I intend to do these nitpicks in a chronological order, as in the order in which they appeared in the movie itself. But this first one is more of an overarching one, or at least it encompasses multiple nitpicks, and that is Captain Marvel. Now, I'm not going to go deeply into the entire controversy surrounding Brie Larson or whatever. Um, and I do think they used her as best as they could in this movie, because she is a complete newcomer. Like, even if you love the Captain Marvel movie, she's still new, and you probably don't care nearly as much about her as the rest of the cast. And they use that well. Like, she's only in the movie for a very short period, and she doesn't do that much, which I liked. But that also kind of made her feel like a walking plot, like a walking plot machine. Like, also because of her acting, which is incredibly bland and emotionless, especially compared to the stellar performances by the other members of the cast. But also because she is in it so little, it feels like she's just there when something needs to happen. Oh, Tony Stark is lost in space? All right, she'll. I try to snap with my left hand, but I can't snap with my left hand. Here, see, that's better. Tony Stark is lost in space? All right, she'll bring it back. He's 7,000 light years away, but now he's on Earth. So we also casually mention here that Captain Marvel can travel at speeds way past the speed of light. Anyway, doesn't matter. The entire cast is being bombarded by a ginormous fucking spaceship. Captain Marvel to the rescue. One hit that bitch. So yeah, she is. She feels like a walking Deus Ex Machina. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Yeah, that also kind of brings me into the next nitpick, which happens at the end of the movie, which kind of goes against the whole chronological thing I mentioned earlier, but it involves her as well. And that is in the final battle, which is amazing, the army of women. That was so incredibly unnecessary. I looked at my mate the first time I watched it, and I looked at my at the female friend I was with the second time, and both times we were like, no, like that was so forced, and it's completely unnecessary because, as was proven by the army of superhero women, there are tons of powerful female heroes in that fight. You don't have to literally force them together in a group to solve a problem. Like, it's completely unnecessary, and it makes their inclusivity feel forced. which is the opposite of what you want to happen. If they were just in the battle doing their thing, it would have felt natural. Like, of course there are female superheroes who are kicking ass here besides the men. But if you bring them all together in some kind of Power Rangers group of women, that instantly you're like, oh, this is so... It takes you out of the immersion. It's like, what the hell? Why would that happen? That makes no sense. So yeah, that's one nitpick. Well, I guess there was multiple nitpicks, but it all involved Captain Marvel. Now, as to the second nitpick, this is more of a general criticism, I suppose, than one specific thing, but I still don't think it's important enough to damage the quality, or at least the experience of the entire movie, so I'm still gonna call it a nitpick. And that is, the first half of the movie is a bit slow. Like, I've seen it twice now, and every time I left the cinema, I was like, oh my god, my mind is blown, this was amazing, and I'm still crying. But that kind of makes you forget that, like, the first half, when the break in the cinema kicked in, the friend next to me was like, is more going to happen? Like, she said, like, the concepts are cool, but not that much happens, and it's a bit slow. And I get why it's slow, because it focuses way more on the characters and the impact that the snap has had on them personally, which is great. I love the character development, or at least the character study, basically, that this movie is. But that doesn't change the fact that the first half is a little slow. Again, these are nitpicks. Like, it doesn't diminish my enjoyment of the movie. And on that note, the entire movie is, well, I hesitate to call it less structured, but I do feel like it was done a little less clean than Infinity War, which is a very high bar. And what I mean by that is, after I watched Infinity War for the first time, I had a very clear image in my mind. Okay, this happened, then this happened, that caused this, and then we got to Wakanda. With this movie, it went way more all over the place. Which I understand, because to me, it feels like this is more 2 or even 3 movies in one movie than one movie. While Infinity War was basically the opposite. It was basically the third act of a movie, but spread out over an entire movie. It was the third act of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And this one had way more going on, and like I have a way clearer picture in my mind now than about what happened than I did the first time, which can make it feel a bit chaotic if you don't watch it multiple times. So that's the second and third. I don't know. I'm not keeping track. Those were nitpicks. Now, for the next nitpick, we are going to have to jump all the way to the last act of the movie. And that is the fact that Tony stays dead. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely adore the way he goes. I don't enjoy it. He was my favorite character in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. He is part of the reason I cry when I go out of this movie. But the way his death was handled was brilliant. Ever since the first Avengers movie, Tony has been burning. Like, he's been obsessed with defending the world against, at that point, a nameless threat, but it ended up being Thanos. And I think it's only suitable that after he is the one to finally put an end to Thanos, that he also is burned out. Like, mentally, like internally, but also physically from the actual act of doing it. And now that his job is done, he can rest easily. And it's tragic, but it's beautiful as well. So don't get me wrong, I think this is basically the perfect way he could have gone out. But they have the gauntlet. They have the stones. I know it's Tony's gauntlet, but still, like, they have the stones. And I guess maybe the Hulk doesn't want to lose another arm? But I'm not even sure if you need all 6 stones to bring one person back. Let's say that you do. But even if you do, you're not gonna tell me that Bruce isn't willing to sacrifice his other arm to bring Tony back. And even if he isn't, if he's like, okay, dude, I lost an arm, not gonna lose another one. Even if that's the case, they have Captain Marvel there, who is, I think they pushed it that way more powerful than the Hulk at this point. She could easily use the stones to bring back Tony. So the fact that he can't be brought back is weird. I'm sorry, it doesn't. It's a plot hole. I think it's a plot hole. Again, I don't care that much. I've put my like with all of these nitpicks, my mind goes, yeah, I guess that doesn't work perfectly. I don't care. This is awesome, but it is a nitpick, and it is a plot hole, I think. And now for the final. Well, I'm not gonna call it a nitpick. This is the plot hole. This is the plot hole I mentioned in the first impression videos about this. And that is, what the hell is Captain America Steve Rogers doing there as an old man? I guess this is on the same note as Tony, because it deals with the end of both characters, I guess. But the entire point of the time travel in this movie is that you cannot go back in time, and whatever you change there, affecting the future. At least the future you came from. That's the entire point. That is why they can't go back and strangle Thanos as a little kid. So how is it possible that Captain America Steve Rogers goes back in time, lives out his life, and suddenly, in the reality he left, he just pops into existence as an old man there? That doesn't work. That universe he left shouldn't have a Captain America anymore, and another universe now has two. And I guess you can make it work by doing a few mental gymnastics. First thing I can think of is that another universe or another timeline, I guess, had the same thing happen, and there Captain America went to our universe, I suppose. But the way it is presented without explanation in the movie right now is a plot hole. And I don't mind that much. Because it really brought a tear to my eye. If Tony's death was the perfect way he could go out, then this is the perfect happy ending for Steve Rogers. It was beautiful. The scene with him and Agent Parker, I think, dancing in their home, it again brought a tear to my eye, which I guess isn't saying much anymore because I apparently cried throughout this entire movie. But it is a plot hole, and it's a pretty major one. And I don't think the director or the writer or whatever, the producers, they knew, and they didn't care. And I know what you're gonna do in the comments. You have a very brilliant idea of how it could work, and you might be right, you might be wrong. It doesn't really matter. Like I'm sure you can make it work. I already thought of a way it could work, but it can't work in the way it is presented in the movie right now, and that does make it a plot hole. I've mentioned it before, but it bears repeating. These nitpicks, they did not influence my enjoyment of the movie. Not noticeably, at least. I mean, sure, it would have been fun if they weren't there, but like no movie is perfect. I'm sure you could make a similar video about Infinity War. I love this movie, and I will keep loving it, and I might even see it a third time. And I don't. In fact, I think it's a testament to the quality of this movie that despite these nitpicks, I still enjoy it so goddamn much. So much. So, yeah, take from this what you will. I hope it was enjoyable. Don't let it diminish your enjoyment of the movie. And if you think I'm wrong, if you think one of these things wasn't a plot hole or wasn't a nitpick or wasn't a flaw, then please do mention that in the comment section. I am very interested in what you guys have to say about this. Hope you enjoyed it as much as me, and then I'll out.